Hello, my name is Jameson Devon Montgomery, and the policy issue that I will be talking about today is harvesting biospecimens. So, basically, a biospecimen is a sample of materials such as urine, blood, tissue, cells, DNA, RNA, and protein from humans, animals, or plants. Biospecimens are stored in a biorepository and are used for laboratory research. If the samples are from people, medical information may also be stored along with written consent to use the samples in lab studies. However, consent was not always needed for harvesting or acquisition of human cells. In fact, in the 1980s, family medical records were published. In 1990, the Supreme Court entertained the Moore versus Regiments of University of California. This case involved a man named John Moore who was treated for leukemia. His discarded blood and tissue samples were later developed into a cell line that was commercialized by UCLA. A cell line is used most advantageously for its immortality. These cells continue to grow in a culture which is beneficial for studying. Ultimately, California's Supreme Court ruled that Moore and other hospital patients do not have any rights to their discarded biosamples, as they aren't their personal property. It was also stated that they do not share any profits earned from the harvest. Another similar case is widely known, the case of Henrietta Lacks. In 1951, 30-year-old African-American female Henrietta Lacks was diagnosed with an unusually aggressive form of cervical cancer. This cancer ultimately killed her, but harvest tissue remained live and growing. This was a phenomenon that was shocking to researchers. Her cells were passed along without her knowledge or consent. These cells were labeled Hella after her name. Hella became a very lucrative research for study, but Lack's family was not informed, nor did they receive compensation. They remained in poverty. In 2013, a team of researchers publicly published the Hella genome. This was completely lawful. The information was shown to be subject to a breach of privacy to Lax and her descendants. Subsequently, the information was removed from the public domain. Now, in order to access the cell genome, one must apply and be reviewed by the National Institute of Health and members of the Lax family. All of this warranted a discussion and provision of the law on informed consent. Informed consent by the law means that a medical provider must tell a patient of all the potential benefits, risks, and alternatives in any surgical procedure, medical procedure, or other course of treatment, and must obtain a written consent to proceed. Current policy about consent in the U.S. is known as the Common Rule, which states that for a researcher to collect biospecimens specifically for research, informed consent is required. However, when an investigator uses a biospecimen that has been collected for another purpose, then he does not need informed consent. Also, direct identifiers cannot be used to label the specimens. This is in order to keep confidentiality. So, had Henrietta Lacks been a patient today, then the cell would not be labeled Hella. Personally, I feel that there should be further provisions to these laws. I feel that regardless, a person should be informed that their cells will be used in any way. The cells derive from them, so it shouldn't even have to be discussed. Ultimately, if you don't own anything, you own your body and all the rights to them, regardless of if it's in or out of your body. Drawing from personal experience, I would want possession of any harvest part of my body. In August 2016, I had my wisdom teeth removed. I wanted them so badly, but I was told that I couldn't have them. While the two cases don't relate 100%, I still believe that they involve consent and ownership. Many policymakers agree with me in saying that consent laws need provision. In September 2015, the federal government released a proposition to replace the common rule. The most significant changes are: 1. Consent would be required regardless of how it was obtained and regardless of why it was obtained. Consent wouldn't be needed for specific studies, but needed in general for a broad range of studies now and in the future. And lastly, 3. In addition to basic elements of consent, additional elements would cover commercial usage, profit, results, recontact, and widespread sharing. One recent initiative by the National Institute of Health is the All of Us research program. All of Us is a participant-engaged, data-driven enterprise supporting research at the intersection of human biology, behavior, genetics, etc. From attending a seminar focused on All of Us, there are initiatives to provide informed consent on entering one's medical information into a database for medical research. The database would be accessible to researchers to develop medicine specific to race, ethnicity, and culture. While the United States still has a long way to go in terms of informed consent and its ethics and morals, we are looking in a bright direction to improvement.